The Florida Gators take on the Tennessee Volunteers tomorrow in the Swamp. We're going to talk about what the Florida Gators need to do in order to win this game here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Happy Friday. Florida Gators play football tomorrow, so it's always a good day at that point. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. And before we get started, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. And when we're talking about the Florida Gators winning this football game, because obviously that's what we want to do, Florida Gators need to run the football. You watch the Utah game, they did not even really attempt to run the ball. And that was, to me, a big reason why that offense never really got going. I understand Utah stacked the box, yada, yada, yada. That means nothing to me. Because if you think you're a good enough football team and you think you're a good enough offensive line with good enough running backs, you run the football. And I don't think that the Florida Gators really showed that against Utah. Just like they didn't show that they were like, yeah, we're confident we could do this, so we're going to do it. They just didn't even try, and that was what was most disheartening for me. But again, Florida Gators in 2023, if you want to win basically any football game, you need to be able to run the football. Come on. Look, you didn't run against Utah and you lost. You ran against McNeese State and you won. That was clearly the only reason why you beat McNeese State and lost to Utah. But no, genuinely, I think especially as we get into the tougher part of the schedule where we have Tennessee up there, we have Kentucky at Kentucky, we have the Georgia game, LSU in Baton Rouge, Florida State in Gainesville. You have to be able to run the football if you want to win these football games. Obviously, football games. The Florida Gators, they didn't try to do that. When you look at Tennessee's defense, though, both Virginia and Austin Peay found quite a bit of success in the ground game. Like yards after contact were there. And I know that one thing that someone brought up in the Locked On Gators Discord the other day was Florida missed 3 tackles in week 1 against Utah. They missed 6 tackles against McNeese State. Total of 9 missed tackles through 2 games. That's an insane ratio, by the way. That's not sustainable. Florida's going to miss more tackles. It's just how things work. Tennessee's missed 17 so far. Hasn't been exactly a dominant performance for them defensively. Okay. So for me, when I look at what their weakness has been, it's been run defense, really. And I don't mean in the sense of like, oh, they don't give up yardage at all. I mean in the sense of they give up quite a few yards after contact. You look at week 1, Virginia had 121 rushing yards. 121 rushing yards against Tennessee in week 1. 91 of those were after contact. That's what, 75% of your yards coming after contact? And to me, I don't take that as super indicative of, oh my God, Virginia's running backs are just so talented, or McNeese State's running backs, or Austin Peay's running backs are so talented, because Austin Peay had 127 yards total. 96 of those came after contact. I feel like, and when you watch the film, you could also see this where defensive line, they do their job. Tennessee's defensive line does their job. Okay. I think it's their second level that's the issue. Yards after contact numbers are a bit inflated because it counts when a defensive lineman just like, reaches his arm, gets his hand on a running back, but hard to bring down a running back by just your arm. So yards after contact number, it's inflated because of that. However, it's also helped by Tennessee's linebackers have not been coming up and cleaning plays up immediately. 17 missed tackles for Tennessee so far on the season. That's not exactly awe-inspiring if you're a Tennessee fan, which very few of you are probably here right now. But that's not all inspiring there. But also, when you look at the fact that Virginia's running backs and Austin Peay's running backs have been able to find success against this Tennessee Volunteers defense, makes you feel at least a little bit good as a Florida Gators fan, right? Like Aaron Beasley for Tennessee, he's great in coverage. I think he's fantastic at that. Like I think that alone is going to get him to the NFL. However, as a run defender and as a tackler, not great, Bob. He's just not great. So that's what I mean where I say if you can get to the second level, which Florida, there are very few teams that should be able to keep you from getting to the second level. If you're Florida and you can get to the second level, you should be able to find pretty consistent success running this football. Okay? Get to the second level, make their linebackers make plays, make their corners make plays, make their safeties make plays. Because if you can get to the second level, you're going to continue to find success. Basically, offensive line, don't let Tennessee's defensive line dictate the action. We trust Florida's running backs, Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, one of the best running back duos in football. Full faith in them. Offensive line, let them get to the second level, let them make plays. And honestly, it might be even more important here. If you can run the football successfully and continue to pick up first downs and just chunk yardage there, you keep the Volunteers offense off the field. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but Volunteers offense hasn't really been clicking on all cylinders like they usually have been under Josh Heupel so far. But they're still that close to just an explosive play and just erupting as an offense. Okay, so keeping their offense off the field is also key. And when you run the football, you do that a lot. You keep the clock churning. So first off, new rule, first downs, clock keeps running. So you run for a first down, clock keeps running. You throw for a first down, clock keeps running. Also, when you run the football, you don't run the risk of throwing an incompletion, which would stop the clock. I know that this is not what people want. Like, I know nobody is like, time of possession domination. That's why we're going to win. That's what I want to hear. Everyone wants to hear, oh, we're going to win the game because we're the better football team. I'm not going to tell you that. I do think Florida's going to win this game. I think it'll be like 28-24. And I know that yesterday I had Volunteers fans that were just like, if you're relying on holding our high-octane offense to under 30 points, then boy, buddy, do you have another thing coming. Here's a very important part of that. Shut the hell up. Simple as that, because your high-octane offense, it's got potential to be explosive. Explosive and consistency are two different things. Your high-octane offense scored 30 against Austin Peay. Okay. So I don't want to hear if you need to hold us under 30 to win. I don't think Florida needs to do that. I think Florida will hold Tennessee under 30. I think that Tennessee's offense last year was way better. Okay. It's not like they were scoring 60 on Florida. So I think Tennessee's offense was way better last year. And I think Florida's defense is way better. Florida's defense is way better this year. So that's where I'm like, yeah, obviously, it's not ideal to say, oh, yeah, you have to run the football and dominate time of possession in order to win this game, because you want to just say, we're going to win this game, so we're going to show up and just punch them in the mouth repeatedly. Florida will be doing that, but it's not that Florida's just out-manning Tennessee there. It's that Florida needs to run the football and play good defense if they want to win games. They don't have the luxury of going, yeah, we're just going to show up and do what we do and win the football game then. You need to do this. And so I think for Florida, that's the most important thing against Tennessee. Run the football. Not only will it help you score points and help you move the ball downfield, it will keep Tennessee's offense off the field, keep your defense nice and fresh, because they have to be to go against Joe Milton and the Volunteers offense, which again hasn't really popped yet, but they're a snap of the fingers away from a busted play, big play touchdown at any moment, which we're about to talk about Joe Milton and this Tennessee Volunteers offense. Before we do that, though, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best and qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free with simple tools like screening questions. It makes it easier for you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Now, also, before we get into this, I'm going to let you guys know if you've ever had trouble performing anywhere, you ever out with your partner and it feels like you can't get the job done, it's get worse when there's a lot of people around. Volunteers fans, I know that you know plenty about this. Is it especially bad with guacamole? Yeah, right? I'm talking about weak chips, Vols fans, you get it. The ones that can't handle a scoop of guac. My Gators fans, they know this. Here at Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips, we understand the pain of trying to dip with weak tortilla chips. I'm a screwed up dip because I want to do way too much dip on your chip, like I always do. But no one wants to go soft on the guac, right? Unlike other chips, Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips are literally built to dip. That's their purpose. Crisp, corny, organic, like moi. These chips will take your tailgate to the next level. Zach's Mighty Tortilla Chips are now available in sea salt, lime, and nacho flavors at Publix. You'll find them in the deli section with the dips. So head on over to Publix, grab a bag of Zach's Mighty, let us know what flavor you got, and scoop that guac like the stud you are. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Talking about Joe Milton and this Tennessee Volunteers offense. Because everybody knows when you're talking about quarterback play, every quarterback is pretty bad under pressure. That's why it's important to pressure the quarterback, because quarterbacks tend to make mistakes when they're pressured. Joe Milton specifically, so far, hasn't been good under pressure. Like, he's been worse than average under pressure compared to other quarterbacks and their drop off. His drop off's pretty significant when he gets pressured. Okay? Not when he gets blitzed, when pressure is actually hitting home, that's when he screws up. And I think part of it is I think he needs more time to read coverages. And I think that when your clock's getting sped up, you're rushed to make decisions, make some errant passes, maybe, which he hasn't thrown a pick yet this season. But you just speed things up a little too much, maybe. And we've heard like about the drops with Tennessee Volunteers receivers this year so far. They've got I think it's 5 or 6 drops on the year. Some of that is timing issues. It's not just like, oh yeah, great, perfect, easy, clunk. Some of it is timing issues. And so I think that a lot of that is when he's under pressure, when Joe Milton's under pressure, he speeds it up a little bit. Again, every quarterback does. Every quarterback's bad under pressure. Joe Milton is worse than others at throwing the ball under pressure. And I don't know what it is about Joe Milton and his play style. Like, I don't know if he doesn't have the green light to do whatever he wants, which I highly doubt that's the case. I don't know if he's just waiting for SEC play like this week to turn it up. But for some reason, Joe Milton hasn't been scrambling. And I'm not sure why. And like Billy Napier mentioned it in, I think it was Monday's press conference of, hey, yeah, that Tennessee QB, he can run. Like he can run. There's no doubt about it. He just hasn't this year. Like last year, he was backing up Hendon Hooker. The year before that, he didn't start the whole time. Like he's never had a full season as a starter, really. But I feel like every time we see him or we watch him and I like see pressure getting in, I'm like, why isn't he scrambling? I don't get it. Like, and I he could also just be the type where he's like, yeah, like I don't want to scramble. Like I want to be a passing quarterback, which duh. But also, if you want to be a winning quarterback, I feel like you should be scrambling a little bit more. And I feel like Joe Milton just isn't. And that's not even me saying he's bad because of it. I'm just saying I don't understand it because he's good at it. Like he's very capable of doing it. He just chooses not to. And that confuses me, but I do expect him to do that this week if he gets the opportunity. I know last week against McNeese State, if you're a Florida Gators fan and you remember, if you watched the game and you remember Scooby Williams' sack, which was in the first or second quarter, Scooby Williams' sack came while he was a QB spy. McNeese State's QB tried rolling, and Scooby Williams just triggered down and took him out. I would expect Scooby to be the spy with Joe Milton here too. Like I'd expect that to be his responsibility. Offensive line for Tennessee has been suspect so far, potentially getting Mays back at center. We'll know for sure on Saturday evening if he really rolls out there. Offensive line's been suspect so far though. Has to be a priority to get after him. Like it makes no sense to not want to kind of turn up the pressure a little bit if you're Austin Armstrong. I'm not saying you have to blitz the hell out of him. I'm not saying that because that's also how you give up massive plays. But I am saying that you've got to figure out ways to get pressure, whether that's running stunts, whether that's blitzing, whether it's creepers, sim pressures, whatever you're doing, you need to get pressure on him. Because Florida's pass rush, let's be honest, hasn't been stellar through the first few games of the season. It's not like they've been just wrecking everybody in terms of creating pressure. Like Scooby's been the most productive pass rusher so far. Scooby Williams, he's an off-ball linebacker. Okay, it's like Amari Burney last year when Amari Burney was like creating pressure pretty consistently. And it's like, yeah, he was doing it as a spy. Like he wasn't blitzing a ton. Prince Luman hasn't really turned it up yet. I know he's been getting chipped with running backs and tight ends and all that, but we need him to kind of rev it up a little bit here. Kelby Collins, TJ Searcy, everybody needs to get going. I think that's something that we haven't really seen enough of yet from this Florida Gators pass rush. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Tennessee's offensive line has been, again, suspect. Austin P had 11 pressures last week. It's been rough. Jeremiah Crawford at tackle has been struggling on right tackle. So we've seen Princely rush a lot from both sides. Probably going to see him more at right tackle than anywhere else this weekend, at least. So I would expect to see that. But Vol's passing attack, largely predicated on the vertical passing game. You need a little bit more time for that to develop if you really want to get going, especially with their switch vertical stuff that they like to run. So while their offense hasn't been going vertical as often as last year or as effective as last year with Joe Milton now instead of Hendon Hooker, you use that time to tee off while they're still trying to figure things out. You run the switch verticals that I was talking about. Well, I'll draw them on my handy dandy notepad. But that switch vertical stuff that we're talking about is something that Josh Heupel runs. Like he loves running that. It's very interesting to see because it's weird. It's kind of like option routes everywhere, and you're really opening up your offense a little bit to, yes, creating bigger plays, but also if there's miscommunication, there's issues there. We're going to see how this kind of loads up there. There you go. That's switch verticals. The slot loops out kind of like a wheel, but not really. It's kind of like a skinny wheel, we can call it here. And then they have the option to curl that short or go deep, depending on what the defense is doing. And the outside receiver kind of cuts in and looks like he's running like a post. He has the option of running a post, running vertical, running an in route there. So they've got option routes. It's very common with like teams like Ohio State did it a lot when Justin Fields and C.J. Stroud were the QB. I haven't watched Ohio State much this year. I'm not going to pretend that I've seen them. I would imagine that they're doing something similar, but Brian Hardline's there as the OC, and I don't know if he has much input in that. But that switch vertical stuff is explosive. I mean, watch the Alabama game versus Tennessee last year that destroyed Bama with it. And so I'd be interested to see how that really works out because they haven't been in sync throwing the football deep. The offensive line's been suspect, but could be getting better with Mays returning. Joe Milton struggles under pressure. He's not been willing to take off and run yet. There's a lot going into this that just say, if Joe Milton starts running, he instantly answers quite a few of them. Like he solves a few of those problems because Joe Milton starts running, solves the offensive line being suspect because it's not as important because he's picking up plays with his legs when pressure does get in. Vertical passing attack is going to open up because while you're covering those vertical passing routes, he's going to take off running. And then you don't have someone there, then you adjust to have that covered, and then you're more suspect giving up that deep passing attack. So this can all be answered in Joe Milton. It's about, will he do that? And I know that I took a lot of heat after Florida versus Utah when Tennessee fans were talking trash. And I was like, look, I'm not sold on Joe Milton. I'm not saying he's bad, but you're not going to catch me saying he's good. He's talented, but Anthony Richardson was talented and he wasn't good at Florida. So I'm not going to say Joe Milton was good at Tennessee. You're out of your mind on that one. We're also going to talk about winning early downs. That's the last thing we have to talk about here on Locked On Gators. Before we talk about that, though, I will tell you guys that today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And NFL season started last week, or this past week, yes. But you can still get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you bet $5 and you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Boom. Plus, all customers who bet $5, new and returning, get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV when you bet $5. So now's the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can bet on everything. I know primetime games. I love betting like player to catch a pass on the next drive, player to catch a pass on the next drive. It just keeps me interested, and they're usually pretty good odds. So that's how I roll. But visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season with an offer that you won't want to miss. And remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Like I mentioned in the last segment, the Tennessee Volunteers passing attack hasn't been very effective lately. Okay? What has been very effective is their run game. No denying that their run game has been very successful. You look at Jalen Wright, he's got almost 10 yards per carry so far this season. That's great. Jabari Small, over 6 yards per carry this season. Okay. And Jalen Wright's been doing a lot of his damage after contact. So it's not like he's just getting these wide open lanes and he's just gashing teams and then getting brought down easily. No, he's picking up chunk plays. He's got 10 carries of 10 yards or longer already this season. So their rushing attack been doing damn good so far to start the year. You have to win that first down battle. And the Florida Gators rushing defense has been pretty solid so far this year. Jalen Wright has the second most carries of 10 plus yards. He's got 10 carries of 10 or more yards on only 25 carries this season. First place is Damon Claiborne with Wake Forest, who has 12 carries of 10 or more yards, 39 carries. So 2 more carries of 10 or more yards on 14 more attempts. Yeah, Jalen Wright's been producing like a mother trucker this season, okay? So their run game's been effective. You have to win those first downs early. You have to win those first downs defensively to force Tennessee and Joe Milton into those second and long, third and long situations. And then you just trust your back seven to make the plays. Personally, if I'm Austin Armstrong, I'm not blitzing a ton. I'm going to generate a pass rush with stunts and things that I mentioned before. I'm not blitzing a ton against this offense. Like I showed, like the switch verticals routes that we've got. There goes the pen. Like switch verticals routes that we got there. Those are developing routes. They're developing option routes. Okay. When you have stuff like that, I'm just going to cover that for a second and hope that the light fixes because I screwed it up by covering it. There we go. When you have those switch vertical routes, you need more time for them to develop. So I understand wanting to blitz and be like, hey, just don't let them develop. However, they're just lightning quick with that option of based on whatever coverage you're playing, they can exploit you. And so if you want to avoid those, have more players in coverage, more cover men to cut things off. I don't care if you're just like, oh yeah, we're just going to sit and cover 3 quarters. I don't care what it is. As long as it's defended well, I don't care what you do. I just wouldn't generate pressure too much just because, again, taking a man out of coverage. Or I wouldn't blitz too much. I want to generate pressure. I wouldn't blitz too much because then you're taking a man out of coverage. And that's not a great thing to do. So winning those early downs to force Tennessee into those positions, that's what you want. 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8, those situations where you know or you're pretty damn confident that they're going to throw the football, you get to just pin your ears back as a pass rusher and go. Just get after QB1. Just get after QB1. That's it. All you have to do. Easier said than done, of course. But when that's what you get to do in those 2nd and 3rd and longs, it makes your job a lot easier defensively. Just because the odds of converting those, not great, Bob. Florida's given up, 3 third down conversions so far this year, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull up those numbers right now, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 third down conversions so far in the first 2 games of the season. I think it's 3 for 13, or maybe that was just Utah went 3 for 13, but McNeese State didn't have a ton of success either that way. So yes, Utah went on third down 3 for 13. That's why 3 for 13 is in my head. Utah went 3 for 13 on third down, significantly improved from what Florida did last year in any game on third down. So that was stunning, truly. And then McNeese State went 2 for 10 on third down. So 5 for 23 on third down is Florida Gators defense, which means Florida Gators defense is 18 for 23. Pretty good odds, right? So getting Tennessee into those difficult positions as it is with a team that's been very good on third down, that's how you make life really uncomfortable for this offense. And then for the Florida Gators offense, you need to win the early downs so that you don't get one dimensional. I've mentioned the Volunteers passing attack vertically hasn't been working. It easily could start working any week. Like, it's not going to be bad all season. They're going to clean it up eventually. It could be this week, could not. But I think that the Vols could get one-dimensional throwing the football and survive and win football games. I'm not confident that the Gators can. I love what they've done so far with what they have. I like getting the ball into Eugene Wilson's hands and Ricky Pearsall's hands and all that. But I'm not going to sit here and just say, yeah, no, we could drop back 45, 50 times and win football games. That's silly. When you have Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, and this O-line, it's silly to just go, yeah, we could just drop back a time and throw the football. No. You can't get one-dimensional if you're Florida. You can't put yourself in those third and long situations frequently. You need to win early downs offensively so that you can continue to have the threat of running the football. You can throw it, and I won't care. Like, I'm not the type to go 3rd and 2 and you threw it, you're an idiot. Because if you do that, I'm assuming you're probably running the football 4th and 2 if you don't convert that. So I don't care if you go 3rd and 2, 3rd and short, and you throw the football. I care about if you're forced to throw the football in 3rd and long, because that's not winning football there. So for Florida, you have to win those early downs because you need to be able to run the football, kill the clock, dominate time of possession, and win the football game. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily, ad-free, wherever you listen to the podcast. Let me know your score prediction. Mine's 28-24. We'll be back tomorrow night after the game. We're going live after that one. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole 9 Sports, Giants Country, NFL 33. And I will see you all tomorrow.